Spindle caught my attention the moment I saw the email asking if I would like a key for my Twitch channel. I mean, a pixel art adventure game where you play as Death, exploring a world where no one can die anymore, with a talking pig as your companion? Of course I said yes. It sounds quirky and lighthearted, but under the surface, there's something surprisingly thoughtful about it. Spindle is an indie action-adventure game from Wobbleghost, published by Deck 13. It wears its Zelda, A Link to the Past inspiration proudly. Top-down perspective, puzzle-filled dungeons, and a looping world design that encourages exploration. You wake up as Death to find that the cycle of life has stopped. Nothing and no one can die. The world is breaking down, creatures are restless, and even the living seem confused about what's happening. What really makes Spindle stand out, though, isn't its mechanics, it's its tone. It's a game about purpose, duty, and what happens when your reason for existing suddenly doesn't work anymore. Gameplay-wise, Spindle keeps things simple and familiar. You swing your scythe, roll to dodge, and you solve environmental puzzles. It's heavily inspired by classic 16-bit adventures, but it doesn't just copy them. Pig, for example, isn't just there for comic relief. He's an essential puzzle mechanic. You'll use him to hit switches, distract enemies, or even access hidden areas. Every dungeon builds around a small twist, forcing you to think differently about how Death and Pig work together. The combat is snappy, but it's not flawless. Hit detection can be inconsistent, and some boss fights lean more towards trial and error than clever design. Still, I never found it frustrating enough to quit, just moments where the polish doesn't quite match the ambition. Exploration, on the other hand, is the real draw. You're constantly rewarded for curiosity, stumbling upon gravestones with cryptic inscriptions, empty villages quietly decaying, and subtle details that make the world feel frozen in time. Spindle doesn't rely on flashy cutscenes. It lets the world tell the story quietly. Now, where Spindle stumbles a little are the controls and accessibility. The controls aren't bad by any means, but they can feel clunky. A few actions share the same button, which leads to awkward moments where you're trying to interact but end up swinging your scythe instead. Or you'll be trying to jump and you end up fishing. It's not the end of the world, but it breaks up the rhythm. And when it happens at the wrong time, it is incredibly frustrating. I understand it's a retro-inspired game, but modern controllers have plenty of buttons that we can map individual actions to. I would also like to point out that the color palette, while gorgeous, can make readability tough. Certain environments blend together, and because there's no contrast option or colorblind option, it's easy to lose track of details or small objects. The inability to zoom in on the map was another point of frustration for me. I'm trying to figure out how to get to an area or exactly where the next objective is, and that was difficult more often than not. It ends up being one of those games that looks stunning in screenshots, but it can be a little hard to parse in motion. You can also see this being an even bigger issue if you're playing on a handheld or even a smaller monitor. A few accessibility toggles and even a zoom feature would make up big. All that being said, Spindle's art direction is hard not to love. The pixel work is detailed but clean, with a muted color palette that fits the mood perfectly. Lush greens for life, cold purples for death. It's thematically tight and visually consistent. The lighting adds a lot too. You'll move from warm, living forests to eerie, desaturated ruins that feel drained of energy. It's not just pretty, it reinforces the story. The music matches that perfectly. It's calm but haunting, often using piano and flute melodies that feel whimsical, but the world itself remembers better days. It reminded me a bit of Crosscode, understated, emotional, and never intrusive. There's restraint here. Spindle doesn't try to dazzle you, it tries to linger with you. The story isn't also heavy on dialogue or exposition, but it doesn't need to be. You'll learn what's going on by exploring, talking to scattered characters, and piecing things together from the environment. At its heart, Spindle is about identity and purpose. Death, the character, is more lost than menacing. Pig, in contrast, brings warmth and humanity to the journey. It's a small, worldless relationship, but it says a lot. I really appreciate that the game never turns cynical. It's somber, sure, but it's also hopeful. It's about accepting that endings have meaning, and without them, life loses something essential. At the end of the day, Spindle isn't perfect. Some of the puzzles drag on a bit too long, combat can feel rough, and a few story beats could use a bit more payoff. That being said, it's one of those games that leaves a quiet impression. The kind that makes you reflect once the credits roll. It's not about mastery or high-skilled gameplay. It's about reflection. About finding beauty in a world where endings have stopped. If you love pixel art adventures, or you grew up on Super Nintendo classics and want something a little more meditative, Spindle is absolutely worth your time. It's a beautiful, flawed, and thoughtful little game about death, learning what it means to live. Because sometimes, even death needs a reason to keep going.